So, hello everyone, and thank you for tuning in to another episode of Lawyers with Stories. Today we have Laura Lange in the house. Laura Lange is a recent connection of mine on LinkedIn, and her story, her journey in law, and even coming out of it and doing what she's doing today and finding her niche, I think is going to be very inspiring. And of course, we're not just looking to inspire, we're looking to create action points so that if you are a law student, a law graduate, even a professional who's tuning in and looking for that pivot, I'm a big believer in the after law career or marrying your initial career with something that you're really passionate about and then finding your special place in the profession. And I think that's what Laura has been able to do. Just a reminder of the objectives of this podcast. We're not here to merely platform exciting people and successful people. We're also here for the negative stuff because I think that's one thing that we're not taught about a lot in the legal profession, even before we enter it, about how to give up, how to throw in the towel, how to say something is not working. And so many of our guests have been down that path, and Laura is one of those. And it's okay to stop, to recalibrate, figure out your place, and then, of course, pick up the ball and continue. So we're here to maybe even discourage you if law, you think you're forcing yourself into the career and perhaps it's not for you, right? So at the end of the day, this podcast must cause you to do something, whether it's a positive action or what is perceived as a negative action, like giving up. Giving up is okay. You don't have to be perfect. You don't have to win all the time, and ultimately, that's very bad for your mental health. And of course, one common passion that Laura and I both share is lawyer well-being and just well-being in general, right? Because we know it can be a very demanding career, especially as a female, and the type of law that you get into, the type of legal practice can all create a drain on your system. And so we want ultimately, when you hear this podcast episode, that if anything, your wellness is most important. And if that means saying yes to certain things and saying no to certain things that you thought were part of the career and we might shatter some myths today, we are all for that. So, without taking up too much of time and, of course, risking missing out any part of Laura's long resume, illustrious resume, I'm going to let her start the conversation and take it from here. And, of course, um, as we go along, we'll pick apart bits of her journey that we think will be relevant to you. So, Laura, take it away.
Hi, Lisa. Thanks so much for having me on your podcast. I'm super excited to be here. And I really resonate with the whole, objective of the podcast, your mission to help bring awareness to wellness and well-being and mental health in the legal profession, because that is something I am very, very passionate about too. So I guess you're looking for a little bit of an introduction, like who am I and what
Yeah,
have I been
yeah.
up to in my legal journey so far, right? So for those of you that don't know me, my name is Laura Lang. I am a lawyer by training from Copenhagen, Denmark. I've been in the legal profession for the last decade. Actually, I started my legal studies straight out of high school. I was the perfect high performer, type A, high achiever. No gap year, nothing, just straight into university. And I took this path of going through, like, specializing in commercial and corporate law. I was very determined to get into the best law firms, get the best legal jobs, all the things. It was amazing, but I burned out really quickly. I put so much pressure on myself, and having the pressure from more senior legal professionals around me, it was just like I reached a limit where it was just too much. And it kind of called me to, look around and see what else is possible out there. What else can I do? How can I use this amazing degree that I now have in a way where where I don't have to burn myself to the ground, where I don't have to wake up in the morning and just feel that dread with going into the office. So, after having passed the bar in Denmark, after having specialized in commercial contracts for at least 5 years after I graduated, I I looked around, and because I'd had severe troubles with my mental health and like panic attacks and all those kinds of things in the offices I worked at, I had specialized in yoga as well. I did a yoga teacher training. I practiced a lot on my own, and that eventually led me to look at how I could bring all my skills together essentially. So I quit my job, my like traditional 9 to 5 corporate legal job last year. And I went out to start an online business from a remote mountaintop of Greece. And this is where I am today, where I am essentially merging all my skills in yoga, law, online business together. And I've like built this amazing business that kind of fits my lifestyle. And it allows me to do a lot of different things, work on a lot of different projects, and at the same time I help other people build online businesses as well, using all the skills that I have from my legal background, but at the same time allowing myself to be creative and looking for different ways of seeing things, creating alternative paths, and not necessarily taking the most traditional climb up the corporate ladder, so to speak.
It's very interesting. Very much resonates with my journey because I mean, there are times people ask me, "So, what are you doing now?" Or "Are you still in practice?" And it forced me to define what it is that I'm doing. And like you said, it's something that I wouldn't have saw myself going into, but at the same time, acknowledging that you have other skills besides legal skills and finding a way to merge all of that in a way that makes you happy, ultimately gets you up and going in the morning and wanting to do your thing every day. So that was a very nice elevator pitch. Um, so perhaps maybe we'll just go take it back a bit and maybe you tell us about what motivates you to study law in the first place. And of course, if there were any other influences, perhaps cultural, family, because that factors a lot with law students and, the prestige that comes with law, studying law, and the potential of earning very well. And so maybe just give us a background about your decision to study law.
Yeah, of course. So I think my motivation is probably a little bit different from the traditional law student. I'm a first generation lawyer in my family as well, and I never had the pressure from my family, from my parents, from society really to go and study law. I just always considered myself a huge geek. I would like always hang out with tons and tons of books in the library while I went to school, and like diving into books and fictional books was kind of like my sanctuary where I just like go into a completely different universe. And I knew that like I was also very realistic, and I knew that I what I really wanted was to go into university, study literature, study philosophy, but I also knew that that would be really difficult to make money off of, at least in the sense of getting a job. So I had interest in social sciences, politics, those kinds of things as well. And I had chat with my mom. I remember right before the deadline was due to apply for university in Denmark in the year I was looking to start, and my mom was like, why don't you study law? Like that would give you a chance to still read books and do all the analysis and interpretation and a lot of writing, but without having this issue of not being able to find a job afterwards. And I was like, that sounds like a good idea. Let me try that. And I actually had no clue whatsoever what I had gotten myself into, other than the fact that I was really good at reading, I was really good at studying, and I was like, I will make this work one way or another.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's good that you had that. I guess it was always maybe always in you. I can share that part about losing yourself in books because when I was, under 10 and under and a little bit above that, I read a lot of these, Nancy Drew, Hardy Boys, and I like those kind of catching the criminal and the investigation part. So that was what I immersed myself in. And of course, now when I look back, I see it kind of pointed to what I was gonna do one day. I mean, I eventually ended up in criminal litigation, so there you go. But I mean, for me as well, it was just identify with law being, for me, it was the last thing in the kind of in the prospectus, and um, I think the fact that it worked out was really nice. I also didn't know what I was getting myself into. But yeah, it's nice to know that I think for once there was no pressure from family, and you know, usually that tends to push at least South African law students, and I'm sure in other countries as well, in a direction they don't want to go. So it's good to know that it was your choice ultimately. So yeah, yeah. So I mean, we're all about not taking the straight path here. We believe in the crooked paths. We believe in detours. So maybe just take us through your post graduation. Getting into your first real job. What was that like? And of course, we're going to unpack the mental health side of things as well, and what led to you leaving. But just walk us through those initial, I guess, those 5 years that you mentioned, of getting into your legal job.
Yeah, so I graduated law school when I was 23 in Denmark. The system is a little bit different from other countries, I believe. So you actually study law for 5 years straight in university.
Mm,
Like I did a 3 year undergrad, a 2 year master. And then I had been working part-time legal assistant type jobs, basically from third semester and all the way until I graduated. And one
mm,
of the jobs I'd had was working with a big law firm in Denmark, and they offered me a full-time position as an assistant attorney after graduation. And I was like, that had been my goal my entire way through university. I really wanted to get into a big law firm and specialize. And so like I really felt like I'd made it. It was like amazing. I have my dream job. I'm 23. The whole world is like right there in front of me. I'm about to like embark on this amazing career adventure. And I think I didn't have much awareness at the time of what was actually going on in my body. Like I was getting up every morning, I was going into the office, I was like killing it on the cases. I just really felt like I was doing a very good job. And then a couple of months in, um, I started to notice some symptoms which I didn't really understand what they actually were, and now I understand that it has been like anxiety, like some kind of panic. Like I just thought it was normal, to go around and feel discomfort in your body, but there was a lot of pressure. I had a lot of responsibility at a very young age, and so that kind of like kept coming up for me, and I couldn't understand how everyone else seemed to have it all together in the office, and I just felt like such a wreck, and I couldn't sleep at night, and I was like constantly on my phone, and it was just not a vibe. And then when COVID hit, it was kind of like make it or break it for me, I will say, because we were sent, like as everyone else in the world, I started working from my home office, and I just immediately noticed how I felt better, like all these symptoms of anxiety. Like I was shaking a lot, I was like so worried all the time, I was having nightmare about my cases. Like it was just really uncomfortable, and all of that slowly started to disappear as I could work from home and be a little bit more in my own space. And that just informed to me that I wasn't on the right path. And it was difficult because I had been juggling back and forth. Like I really wanted to continue down this traditional path. I think I even wanted to make partner. I was like, I'm really committed, but my body and my mind just couldn't keep up. And that's when I had a really honest conversation with myself. And I was like, I'm gonna have to pivot here a little bit. And that's when I switched to getting a couple of different legal counsel positions in house, and that really worked so much better for me. I could still specialize in the direction of commercial contracts that I'd been focusing on at the time, but my work life balance improved, like the pressure was less. I had like managers to reach out to for help, and external law firms that could support me in my journey. And it was very different to be part of an in-house legal team. And that's when everything started to feel so much better for me. I felt much more comfortable going to work. I guess just because the pressure was a little bit lower, but obviously, as most people will know, it's difficult to land one of these in-house legal counsel positions unless you have a couple of years of experience from a law firm. So I feel like I paid my dues, but I was also like, I'm ready to get out of this because the pressure is too high. I can't keep up.
Mm. Yeah, that's so important to listen, to listen to your body. And there's one thing that I understand is carrying stress from university, where you don't have the space to recover, and you just I took 5 years also, because I failed a couple of courses. So and you carry all that stress with you of just having to get through university and make sure you pass. And so now you're getting into your job, and you haven't had a chance to let that stress leave your body. So I'm always telling law students, look, you may think that we may have the dopamine rush of, okay, I'm passing this exam, and I'm passing this exam, so I register for more, and I register for more, and I'm making it, and I'm making it, and I tell them, look, you're going to crash eventually, and especially once you come off that high. So I'm a big believer, because I experienced it too late, although I'm recovering, but you don't have to wait until you crash. So, it was good that you noticed the signs. And I think that's one practical tip out there for listeners, is that as soon as you start feeling that, as soon as I would say your body feels disjointed from your brain, where your brain is saying no, 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 and you're just dragging your body every day, that is, for me, it's like a whole bunch of red flags grouped together. And you got to take that message at face value, and you know jump out if you have to, immediately, and then recalibrate from there, because you cannot afford no career, I say, is worth killing yourself for. So as soon as you realize that something is not right, that this is not normal, that I'm not being myself, my moods are changing, I'm not eating, I'm not sleeping, I'm having nightmares about my cases. Uh, and today I put up a post about healthy sleep habits. Um, so as soon as you notice all those signs, it's so important to shut everything down, you know, and just take time out for yourself. So that was very, I think that's the biggest favor you did for yourself there. And of course, like you said, that making that pivot now to doing in-house. Most people out there will say it's that's something that we can dream about. So it's not something that is easily attainable. But is it something that you would say is preferable to just jumping ship? Like, is it better to just find something that's low key or less stressful?
Um, Not necessarily, I think. Like I didn't have really the awareness at the time to figure out what does my dream career actually look like. I just, the only people I had to look up to were law firm partners or general counsels that were like out there doing the thing that I thought I was supposed to really want to be doing. But at the end of the day, when I was browsing through job ads, I was like, oh my gosh, like this sounds so boring. Is this really what I educated myself into? Like, are these my options? Um, and I think that was when I was like, okay, something has got to shift here because, going through law school is a major achievement, and
Yeah.
we hopefully don't go through that only to end up in a job where we're like, I feel like this job is like literally sucking every single drop out of my soul. And
Mm,
that's when I started to look around to see, okay, I've learned all these incredible skills. Like, I'm an
mm,
amazing, intelligent human being. There are so many ways that I can put these skills to use. These job ads sound incredibly boring to me. It is my responsibility to figure out how I can put this to use and make money in a different way. But I
Yeah,
couldn't put that together 5 7 years ago. Like, that was just
yeah,
impossible. It's been a journey.
yeah. 100%. I'm a believer in, if you can't find what you're looking for, create it. And at the end of the day, we all still need to earn money, but you know, you'd rather be in a lower paying job that where you are happy and you are well in your mind, in your body. So even if it's something that, if it's a side hustle, or it's something that, and of course you mentioned, taking inventory of your skills. That's something I also encourage law students to do. And to those that are listening, university equips you with a lot of soft skills. Coming through a degree teaches you more than you care to, you know, care to value or care to list down. But if you just take an inventory from the time you were at university, even if you've come through some part of your career or in the junior stages, you've also acquired new skills. And, if it's time to leave, then of course take an inventory of those skills and see where you fit in. I'm always telling them to find their places in the profession. So you can create a very nice niche for yourself while also using your legal skills and also learning new skills, because I'm sure you've picked up a bunch of new skills um, doing what you're doing now. So maybe you can just uh, open up a bit more as to what it is exactly that you do now.
Yeah, of course. So, like, I feel like I'm just gonna like drop back a little bit to give some context, because then I think it's gonna make
Sure.
more sense what I'm doing now. So, I as I said, I went through yoga teacher training a couple of years ago, and that really
Mm-hmm.
opened my mind to, like, whoa, there's an entirely different world out there on the other side of the legal profession. And I came back from that training and I was like, I want to teach this. And I started teaching yoga around local yoga studios in Copenhagen. And one thing that came up for me there was like, I want to have my own classes. I want to be able to bring students to my classes and my workshops. How do I do that? And that's when I figured that I had like absolutely no skills in sales and marketing. Like, that was just like non-existent in my world. I was like, what do I do? Do I just like send people a message on Facebook or Instagram and ask them to join my class? That sounds a little bit intrusive to me. So that's when I started really diving into like the world of online business, personal branding, marketing yourself across Instagram, LinkedIn. I started my own podcast. And in the beginning, I was actually just sharing tips from what I knew as a yoga teacher to start attracting people to my world. And in that process, I learned so much more about the whole world of online business. And that's when I figured that, like, whoa, this is like a business model. This is a strategy that I can essentially use however I want to. I can take all the skills that I want to teach, and that I really embody, and that I feel like where I feel like I have like a 10% edge on like my clients, for instance. And I just looked at how can I take all these skills, everything I know about yoga, everything I've learned in law, every like the whole commercial background, business background I have, how can I take that and teach that on the internet, basically?
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what I did. So last year, after I quit my job, I went out and I kept building my online business, primarily focused on yoga at the time. But I also knew that I still wanted to work on some kind of legal cases. So I kind of opened up different income streams, money pathways, essentially through my own business. I marketed myself and everything I did solely through Instagram and LinkedIn. And slowly, I started getting clients into my different offers, coaching offers, online courses, legal consulting cases. And funny enough, like, I got most requests actually from people asking, how do you do what you do? How have you taken all these skills and how are you selling them online? So that naturally led me down the path of helping other people build online businesses and online presences as well. And so today I basically help I like to consider it other high performers, like people that are always the best in their jobs, always, the most committed in the room, always got the good grades, and they're just fed up being inside this 9 to 5 or a job where they feel like they're not appreciated, they're not valued, they don't get the salary increase that they feel that they deserve. And I help them see, well, look at all the skills you have. You can go out and you can build something for yourself. And then the sky is the limit. You never have to ask for a salary increase if you're your own boss. And so today I help these types of people. Funny enough, I have a lot of lawyers and yoga teachers come to me that I help build their online businesses. And that's essentially the work that I do today, but still infusing a lot of the knowledge that I have from my yoga background and from my legal background. Like I help
Mm,
also. It's so interesting because in the coaching calls and the programs I have, people come one question, they from like at one point they ask, how can I like sell myself more on me? And we go like very much into the mindset stuff. And then the next minute it's like, well, what legal entity company form is actually the right one for me if I want to start my own business?
mm,
And I feel like my skills are so versatile, but at the same time, they all just apply to online business, no matter what it is that my clients really want to sell at the end of the day.
That's, I mean, again, that's very much my story. It's like you want to, as you put yourself out there, you start discovering people have varying needs and they want to know how you did what you did. And then you start to form, like you said, multiple income streams, which is, again, it's another practical tip there that, uh, if you get into law firm or big law or magic circle, as they call it in the UK, um, if you get into it, kind of puts all your eggs into one basket. But when you have the freedom to financially, I guess, diversify or to say, okay, I'm more than law, okay, and how can I bring all of those things together to meet the needs that people have? And they might have gone unheard or untapped unless you put yourself out there. So, you know, instead of earning that income and killing yourself and in a law firm you're like, okay, now you are listening to people, you're creating even offers, you're creating products for people, and of course those all become diverse income streams, which eventually will help you in the long run, because if one thing fails, then of course you have the other streams to turn to. So, I mean, that's really it's inspiring to hear another person having gone on that journey. And again, law is a very diverse career, a very versatile career. So it's not that, I think your story also debunks that thing about if you studied law, you're going to end up in a law firm, in a courtroom. Yes, you may do that initially, but that's not your life sentence. And ultimately, law gets into so many areas of life. Like you said in your coaching calls, if people are asking about how to start a yoga business, then of course, what are the legal ramifications or the business ramifications, the commercial side of things. So, you can marry law with just about any other skill or talent that you have. And I think that's really inspiring. And of course, just talk to maybe the mindset of taking that leap. So I think for most of us, getting off to a mountaintop in Greece is not an option. It's something that we would be, whoa, and we'd have people weighing in their opinions, and so like what resolve, and what made you stick to that? And I guess when you got there, how did you make it work?
Like, so how did I make the transition from having this
Yeah,
very traditional lawyer life to
yeah,
suddenly running a remote
yeah,
company from
yeah,
the mountaintop
yeah.
of Greece? Yeah, that's a good question, and I guess I skipped past that pretty quickly. So obviously, like, I've worked really hard to get to where I am today, but I came here to the area in Greece where I live today. I came here a little bit more than 4 years ago for my first yoga retreat when I wasn't doing well in my legal career. As I said, I was like suffering with a lot of anxiety. I was
Mm,
feeling a lot of bodily discomfort. And I went on this yoga retreat here in Greece, and it really helped me feel better. I just felt like a different person when I came back. And it was like my eyes had just been opened to this new world that existed outside of law, where people support you, people speak kind to you, like it's possible to have a positive attitude and outlook at life, basically. And once I had seen that part of the world, I was like, I cannot just go back to how things used to be and just feel miserable and go around and complain with everybody else. So I became very committed to improving my mental and my physical health. I cleaned up my sleeping habits, my exercise habits, what I ate, the people I surrounded myself with. I started meditating, practicing yoga, journaling, all these amazing sustainable habits that I follow today that really helped me sort of keep my physical and mental health in check. And then I feel like that's the foundation, like the health is always the foundation. Once I had that in check, I started building out my skills, as I said, in online business, sales, and marketing. So while I was still working my job, I was looking to refine these skills, build a proper foundation for my business. So it's not that I just went out and I was like, I'm going to quit and I'm going to move to Greece and we'll see what happens. Like, it was a very strategic move. I had built the whole foundation for my business in the year before I quit the job. I didn't necessarily know that I was going to go to Greece. I think it was like a thing I was always saying. I was like, like imagine one day when I can just like do yoga on the top of a mountain in Greece and everything's going to be amazing. And that's like literally my life today. So I think it was also just me being like delusional enough to be like, I can actually make that happen.
Yeah.
Um, and then another thing, so obviously, like I said, the whole foundation up for my business. I had the skills, and then another important part is obviously like how do you save enough money? How do you make a budget that can support you as you go out and
Mm.
do something like this? So I did some financial planning around it. I wouldn't say like crazy financial planning. It was literally just like looking at what would my monthly budget be like if I decided to move to Greece. I looked at that and I was like, cool, I can pull this off over the next year. And by then, my business will have probably started to make money and I'll be fine. And that's kind of what happened. Like, I just ripped the bandage off. I went to my boss one day and I was like, I'm going to quit. And I bought a one-way flight ticket to Greece. And then I really had skin in the game, right? Because then I was in it. I'd come here to Greece. I had my little MacBook and I was like, okay, I have to like show the world now that I can build this business. And so I just got to work. It wasn't like I think I had a lot of people that were like, oh, you're just like hanging out on a beach every day. And I just was not. I was working incredibly hard. I was hiring mentors. I was doing a lot of courses to refine my skills. And I showed up every day to build my business. And it was hard. Like I went through some periods of like making no income in my business, like going through an entire launch, not making any sales, being like, is this going to work out? Really doubting it. But at the end of the day, I just always came back to like, I decided I was going to do this, so I'm going to find my way. I'm going to figure it out, even though it's hard. And that's why I'm where I'm at today, where my business is scaling slowly, sustainably. I wouldn't even say slowly, it's actually going really fast, but it feels sustainable. It's at a pace where my nervous system can keep up. Everything in my business now is designed around me feeling really good and not working myself to death, because I have that experience from my
Mhm.
legal days of like work didn't feel comfortable. And today I'm like, I know what I'm doing. It gets to feel good, and I get to work with dreamy clients from all over the world while I'm here on a mountain in Greece. So that's the really short recap of how I made that happen.
No, I think you touched on something crucial, is that financial planning.
Yeah,
Because I think if I tell people, oh, just jump ship, your mental health is more important. Of course, the first thing they're gonna think of is, where am I gonna get money from? And so, I think for those that want to make the jump eventually, but can hold on for a little bit longer, the thing is, you're gonna have to have some kind of a bare bones strategy in place and have enough put away so that you've got to sustain yourself. I always say no one's going to give you money for nothing. even
exactly.
the even the national lottery is taxed, right? So it's like they're
Yeah,
taking a chunk of it. There's no such thing as money for nothing. So if you want to take a leap, anybody out there wants to take a leap like this, obviously you're going to come up against opposition. People are going to think as Laura said, you got to have a measure of delusion. As they say these days, Delulu. You got to be in
Yeah.
Delulu land a little
Be a
bit
little bit.
to want to pull this off. But at the same time, there's a rational part of it where you're going to have to sustain yourself. If you want to do a Laura, just go to a completely different country. Then, of course, there's all the things about culture and adapting to the culture. And maybe you want to take a holiday there, figure out what it's like, the culture, the people, living conditions, that type of thing. So there's an amount of planning that goes into it. I think the most important thing is financial planning, because going into your own space, it's exciting to find your niche, but at the same time, you've got to make money. So um, I think that's even though it was a short version of it, but it's a really good point that you got to plan. I would say plan to get out.
Exactly.
Especially,
Yeah.
I mean, and especially as a female, right? Like I did sort of criminal litigation, so it's not for the faint of heart, and it's not something that I advise people to stay in for a long time. So, what would you say? As a female in the commercial space, like if you could go back and put a cap on it and say, I'm going to spend X amount of years and then I'm going to jump, would you have set something like that? And if so, how many years would you have set?
Actually, not really. I think like I would never recommend anyone to stay in a place where they don't feel good, right? But at the same time, I'm very grateful that I had the experience that I had before I went out on my own. Like it was a big deal breaker for me quitting my job and going out to do legal consulting on my own, because I always felt like, oh my gosh, what if I don't know how to solve this case? I need to have a manager or a senior lawyer that I can go back and ask questions. And so I needed to get to a point in my legal career where I felt confident that I could solve my cases on my own, or at least know when to not take on a case because my skill set simply did not, match the difficulty of the case. And so I only went out and started doing this once I knew that I had the skill set in my area, I had the expertise. And that took me 5 years after graduating university to get to a point where that felt like, okay, that's cool. No, I think it was actually, was it 3 to 4 years? I'm at 5 years now. Am I? I think no. I think I'm at 6 years now, actually. but it doesn't matter. Like I don't think the most important thing is not like counting the years. It's more a matter of like, can I comfortably take on these cases without feeling like I'm completely, advising in the blind. Because that's never a good feeling. That's gonna give your anxiety as well.
For sure, for sure. I think that's so important that I think we place too much emphasis, and I'm also guilty of this, on years of experience, because myself, I haven't got that many years of experience, but I leverage all of the skills, so that for me carries more value. And I think if people out there are maybe in a junior position, because this podcast is aimed mainly at them, or you're thinking of getting into a law firm position, you want to look so much not at how many years you're spending, but of course you want to set objectives. I think that's the most important thing to say. I'm getting into the legal field. I want to have a certain skill set when I leave. And whatever's next on your agenda is up to you, but I want to have a certain skill set, and of course, what do I need to do to make sure that by the time I leave, be it 3 years, 4 years, 6 years, 10 years, that I have a wealth of skills, that I have a treasure chest of skills that will now make me basically indispensable. And I can market myself not so much on the years that I've spent in the legal field, but of course I can market myself and measure myself, more importantly, by the skill sets that I've acquired and that I've built. So I think it's a very intentional thing, and a lot of law students, graduates, even go through university, go through the qualification part of it, and even the early stages of their career, just letting the thing happen to them, you know. And intention is so important. And I think if you know what you want out of being in the legal field, and then where you want to eventually end up, then you're going to focus on building your skill set and knowing what you want to have at the end of so many years, rather than measuring yourself by the number of years. Because I'm sure you'll agree with me, Laura, that there are many people that spend 10 years in the legal profession and they've stagnated or they've plateaued, right? They've not they've not
Exactly.
even moved an
Yeah.
inch since law school.
Yeah. And it's always about, like, and this comes up for so many of my clients and people that come to me and they're like, do you have a coaching certification? Or like, I can't go out and teach a yoga class because I don't have like 500 hours of training. And my response is just always like, I don't care about how many certificates you have, how many fancy educations you've taken. Like, at the end of the day, if you can't get your clients results, if you can't get results for yourself,
Mm,
like, what do you have to show for it, right? You could have the most fancy certificate from a big university who's like so prestigious and whatnot, and then be the most horrible lawyer in the world because you barely made it through. And
yeah.
so, like, I never cared about like, this is what my resume looks like, or this is how many years of experience. Like, I knew I was an amazing lawyer basically from the moment I entered law school. I've always gotten great results for my cases, for my projects, for my clients. And I looked at that and I was like, well, if I can create this inside somebody else's business and company, I can create that for myself and be like 100% more committed to the outcome.
Absolutely. I think that's it's all about. I think the more people find their place in the legal profession, the less power we give away, right? So it's like, instead of working for a boss and working for a manager and working for a partner or an associate, you're like, I need to put this to use for myself now. So hopefully there are people out there that can have that realization that, hey, I've got a fantastic skill set, legal, personal. I've got a bunch of talents. If just my legal skills are so prolific, or they're getting exercised so well for somebody else and somebody else's brand, what's stopping me from exercising them along with all of my other talents that I can't bring to a law firm? What stops me from, you know, mixing all those things together and making it work for myself? And of course, ultimately, that gives you back the power, and you are now in charge. And of course, you're doing much more than legal. I think that's what I would like to end off the podcast with, episode with, is that you're so much more than a legal person. I think
Mhm.
we identify ourselves too much by what we study and what we do for a living. And we say, so what are you? Or who are you? I'm not asking you what you do for a living. I'm asking you, who are you? Who is Laura? Who is Lisa? And so I think you probably had that moment where you're like, I gotta assess myself, right? Um I've gotta put all the cards on the table and look at what I'm good at, what I'm bad at, what I need to
Exactly.
improve.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um and just be honest, just do a self discovery and say, I'm so much more than this law degree. Right? They think I need to find a way to put all of me together, you know, everything that I have to offer to the world, and just find a place for it, because there is a place for me in the world, and there is a place for me in the profession. But of course, I'm not going to be that traditional person. And of course, maybe just speak to that young Laura. If you could tell her what you know now, maybe the archetype of a law student, or someone who's just graduated. Um, you know, maybe speak to that person, knowing what you know now, and
Yeah.
how to get yourself, to where you are, to a place where you are well, but law is still on your plate.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest realizations I had was when I allowed myself to not pursue the straightforward resume of like, I spent X amount of years in law school and X amount of years in university and X amount of year post qualification and X amount of years in this law firm, and everything's amazing and I'm totally on track, and like by the time I'm 35 I'm going to have it all. And then you end up there and you're like miserable, right? Because you didn't check in with yourself. So when I allowed myself to release the pressure of having the perfect perfect resume and be like, you know what, I'm just going to create like the most curly resume I can come across. I'm going to like expand my skill set in all sorts of directions, like do transformational hatha yoga, teach in my yellow yoga pants, go and do public speaking, start my own podcast, even though I have no idea how to edit it, like do a lot of random things and have a lot of different jobs. When I allowed myself to look outside the box and not have to fit in and like put on a mask and like, now I'm corporate lawyer Laura and this is how everything's supposed to be and it's perfect, 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 because I was miserable, right? So it was like the moment I allowed myself to step out of that there's one way and it's up the corporate ladder and it has to be this way. The moment I let that go and I just allowed myself to pick up the stones along the way, gain the skill sets that I needed, take the experiences that I had, even if it felt like setbacks of failures of like, oh, this didn't go as I wanted it to. Like I was fired from a job as well. Oh my gosh, like that wasn't really on the menu. I hadn't seen that one coming. And just use that as fuel to figure out, well, that wasn't the right step. Well, then I'm going to figure out what it is and I'm going to learn from this experience. And that helped me so much, because like now I don't look back at my resume and I'm like, oh, like it's awful because I did different things. Now I look at it and I'm like, this is like all the different things I've done, all the curly routes I've taken have brought me to exactly where I am today, where I feel like I'm just building my dream business from my dream country, living my dream life. And none of that would have happened had I stayed on the traditional path, just climbing up the corporate ladder.
Amazing. Perfect way to land the plane. And, and of course, everyone, you can reach out to Laura on LinkedIn, Laura Lang, Lauralange. And I'm sure she'll be happy to share further insights into her journey, and maybe you can become a client of hers. And I think the best conversations happen outside of events and outside of podcasts. I'm always encouraging you guys to reach out to our guests and have those extended unrecorded conversations that that will apply to you and make sense to you, and where you can apply um, more, or you can hear more, and you can make the leap, or make the transition, whatever else you're inspired to do. So please reach out to Laura on Instagram, on LinkedIn. I'm sure she'll be happy to talk to you, and of course talk to you about everything from commercial law to contracts to yoga to starting your own online business. So she's quite a lucky dip. So whatever you put your hand in to get, whatever you come up with, I'm sure she'll be able to help you fantastically. So thank you so much, Laura, for coming onto my podcast. It might not be the only episode. Perhaps we'll delve more into the business side of things, because I'm also big on that. So I look forward to having you again. And guys, the podcast will be up probably by Friday on my YouTube channel. Your friendly law mom, LAWMOM. And you'll be able to listen to the podcast episode there, and leave a comment, like, share, subscribe, do all of those wonderful things. And I will hopefully have a an equally wonderful guest for you in our next episode.